Welcome back everyone. I hope the midterm went really well for you. In these next 4 lectures, next couple of weeks, we're going to be looking at firm decisions, particularly how the environment in which firms operate affects the choices that they have, affects the choices that they're going to make, and how those choices and those environments affect consumers and the economy as a whole. For the most part, up until now, we've been concentrating on perfectly competitive firms. Perfectly competitive firms are essentially these small, identical firms, or essentially identical firms selling essentially identical goods. And that has led us to our typical, our standard supply and demand model that we've been using all along. It turns out that once we get away from perfect competition, that supply and demand model and some of those assumptions that we've been making are not necessarily correct. And so we need to think about how things change as we move away from that perfectly competitive environment, particularly to a situation where the level of competition is going to start to ramp up. Perfectly competitive firms operated with lots and lots of close competitors. Well, what happens if there's fewer, or indeed no close competitors whatsoever? How does it work when new firms can enter a market? What sort of effect does that have on firm pricing, on firm decision making, and so on? One of our big ideas throughout these few lectures is going to be the idea of market power. The idea that under certain circumstances, firms are going to be able to charge higher prices without losing all of their sales. Different firms are going to have different amounts of market power, and what we'll do is we'll go through and think about, well, why would a particular firm have more or less market power? How can we predict that? And how can we use that to predict the sorts of prices that it's going to charge, and so on. We'll also think about society as a whole. In particular, how does market power affect the well-being of firm owners and also of consumers? And just as a bit of a spoiler, the answer is going to be the completely unsurprising one, that as you have more market power, you end up with more profit as a firm owner, but typically consumers end up with worse outcomes.